Good evening. As principal of Oradell Public School, I am excited to share about our next step on our journey towards full reopening. We anticipate a full reopening in September with lunch. For us to get there, we need to start making changes now so we're best prepared to give your children what they deserve. Okay, so let's remember way back when. Remember in August when we first met and we were so anxious about how would this work? Well, we've made it work. We've made it work because we worked together as a community, our teachers, our parents, our students, our administrators. We kept saying to ourselves, what is best for children? When we originally devised our model, we started by saying, how do we meet the needs of each group of learners? So we decided to meet the needs of our kindergarten through second graders with consistent 2.5 hours a day of instruction. Knowing that our third through sixth graders were more adept at obtaining the curriculum virtually, we allowed them to be in an AB virtual model. On March 24th, knowing that we had this virtual day thing down, we decided to eliminate the Wednesdays and move to 5 days a week of instruction. On April 28th, we will combine our cohorts and have all of our students who are in our on-site model attend school 5 days a week from 8:30 to either 12:40 or 12:45. So how did we get here? I know there's a lot of talk in the community about why did we wait? How did we decide to combine cohorts? Why did we combine cohorts after we had our last opening for our virtual students to come back? Well, we needed data. So after our last time for our virtual students to come back, we looked at all the numbers we had. We met as a school pandemic response team, and we looked at a myriad of possibilities. One of our possibilities was to practice full day instruction, but to stay in a hybrid model with students attending either on an A day or a B day. We looked at what that would gain. What would that gain in terms of instructional minutes? What would that gain in terms of operational practice? We weighed the positives and the negatives, and we decided that we just weren't getting enough from that model. We then decided, looking at many of our other Bergen County towns who do not have a full virtual model and stream all day from the classroom. So a classroom may have 24 students, 12 of them may be on site and 12 of them may be virtual, with the teacher pivoting between both cohorts. And we looked at what would that mean? Well, to accomplish that, to allow for every student who wants to come back on site, we would need to disband our virtual model, bring those teachers back on site, resort our classes so that all classes had an equal number of students, and split the children that were choosing to remain in the virtual model amongst all them. Sound a bit like chaos? That's what we decided. We have 8 weeks of instruction left, and what we want to do is to provide the most consistency as we can for the most students that we can. So we then decided that that too was not an effective way for our community to increase instruction. We then looked at the numbers and said, okay, if we know that we have 71 kindergartners right now on site, and we have 5 classes, how many students would be in each class? Now, it is important to note that we were very lucky. We did not, to do this model, need to move any classes. All of our classes had pretty equal numbers. So we didn't have to ask students from one first grade to go to another first grade to keep safe distancing. That was actually one of our worries early on about this model and whether it could be accomplished. Once we had our average class sizes, we actually went into classrooms, sample first grade classrooms, since all of our first grade classrooms have approximately the same amount of square footage, third grade classrooms, sixth grade classrooms, and we put desks in them. And we said, what would we need to make this acceptable? Now you're going to notice when you look at this that, well, you may say to me, Megan, kindergarten has 14 kids in an average class size and second grade has 21. How is that? The truth is, when we originally set our classes up, we set them up for all students to kind of come back. In second grade, we had the most amount of students return to on-site instruction at our March deadline. So that's why that number is a little bit higher than some of our other numbers. Now, we could increase distancing by switching people around, knowing that those kindergarten classrooms are the largest in the building. But again, we don't want to create complete inconsistency for our children. If they've gone to one class all year, we want to maintain the consistency of that class. We want to maintain the home that that teacher has where their materials are every day. So as we were looking at this, we said, what are the positives? Now, we knew that there would be some controversy. We knew, let's talk about the elephant in the room right now. There would be some parents in the virtual model that said, wait, it's 5 days a week, now we want to come back. Had we allowed and opened up the window at that point, we do not have any room in our second, our third, and our sixth grade classrooms. We cannot safely accomplish it. That's why we had that deadline and did not make a decision until after that deadline passed, because we needed to know what were the actual numbers that we were dealing with. The reason we've decided to move to this 4 hours and 45 minutes or 4 hours of instruction is to provide consistency for our students, to increase direct instruction time. Yes, to reduce some stress. We know how difficult it was for our parents in grades 3 through 6 on those off on-site days. And most importantly, we want to get our students, our teachers, and this community closer to where we will be in September. So it doesn't feel just like a new normal, it feels like our normal. Now, to accomplish this, there were negatives. We will be moving to 4 feet of space, and we have checked the squares in each classroom. Each of our squares on our classroom floors are a foot to ensure that between each seat a child sits at to the next seat a child's at, there is a minimum of 4 feet. In some of our classrooms, we have maintained 6 feet of social distancing. We also knew, and I personally want to say thank you to our B families in the K2 cohort. We know we've uprooted you the most. Your child was used to coming to school at 12:30 every day and staying till 3 o'clock. My guess is that means that there was a slow morning and everything was very relaxed at home. And now for 8 weeks, we are asking that you would have your child here at 8:30. But here's the good news. It's going to make September a whole lot easier. We knew that there would be some staffing and budget implications. We would need some more special education aides, and we are looking to hire additional instructional aides for some of our remote classrooms whose sizes have gone up to a point where we think an extra body will increase personalized instruction. And we knew that the entire special area schedule would need to be redesigned. So what am I saying? It would have been a whole heck of a lot easier to just maintain the status quo for 8 weeks. But that wasn't what's right for your children. So this administrative team said, we'll take on the work, we'll work over spring break, we'll continue to figure out what we need to do what is best for children. And we truly believe that this model is what's truly best for the 750 students of Oradell Public School on April 28th. These are the principles that guided our phase 1. That our direct time, whether that was in the building or when you were with a teacher, that time was golden. And what we had to make sure is that we knew what the priority standards were. What were the most important things for a child to learn at that grade level as a mathematician, as a reader, as a writer, and we focused on that. We needed to make sure that the goals remain the same. We don't become a different Oradell Public School because we're suddenly in the middle of a global pandemic. We keep at the heart of who we are, and we just figure out how to do it differently. We continue to work on relationships. We continue to focus on what matters. And we continue to remember that it's the same approach no matter the place. So for our full virtual families, your child's day will mirror the on-site day. Your child, while not on-site, will still receive the same amount of direct instruction as students who do attend on-site receive. That does mean that in all of our grade levels, the cohort A's and B's will combine. On April 28th, all students in our full virtual model will log on at 8:30, just like when their on-site peers show up at OPS at 8:30. The one thing to remember, and I've really worked to try to find the phrases that if I'm speaking about the on-site model, I don't leave out our virtual students is if I say on site, one of the ways to think about it is during direct instruction. So if a child has a special and it says on site, that doesn't mean that our full virtual students need to show up at OPS. We actually won't have anyone to teach you at OPS possibly during that time. What that means is that PE class or that music class or that art class will happen in between 8:30 and 12:45. So just like if a student was here during a pre-COVID time and they went to art at 9 o'clock, they may go to art at 9 o'clock. You won't have to worry about that. Their classroom teacher will have them from 8:30 to 9 o'clock and will say, okay, either Mrs. Boconfuso may join the Zoom, or if it's an on-site class on-site, they'll come to the classroom. So I want to reassure you that in a time where all we keep hearing about is learning loss, that's not necessarily the story of Oradell Public School. And I could have filled this presentation with data because we look at data all day long. Data about math, data about language arts, data about attendance. And so I just picked 2 snippets of data to show you that our growth this year is actually on par with our growth during a pre-COVID time. The message is that this return to 5 days a week of instruction isn't necessarily about reading and math. It's actually about learning behaviors and stamina. So for phase 2, I want you to add this image to your collection of images about the principles that guide our reopening. I was reading recently about sandcastles because I've always wanted to be that person that won the sandcastle competition. And it's kind of ironic because I have to be honest, I hate the beach, but I want to make a sandcastle that looks like that. I want to be so proud of it. And so I'm a researcher and I started to research. And I learned that there's a lot of science behind sandcastle making. It actually has a lot to do with the type of sand you use. And it has a lot to do with the proportion of water to sand. That's what we're trying to build for September, that sandcastle. But we need to experiment a little bit and we need to make sure that we have the right materials. And one of the materials we need, it's your students, your children. We need to build some of their skills so that they're ready to build those sandcastles in September. And the number one skill we're seeing that we need to develop in our students right now is stamina and independence. For some of our students, they're in some pretty small classroom sizes, and they've gotten pretty used to relying on adult for assistance. That's not going to be their story in September. If your child is currently in a kindergarten class with 8 students and a teacher and an aide that might be there for part of the day, next year they'll be in a 1st grade class with 20 students and 1 teacher. That's going to be a bit of a culture shock, but we can help them be ready. We can give them the skill of independence. We can help our 3rd graders learn to sustain reading longer. That was really hard to work on when you were only here 2 or 3 days a week. We started to abbreviate this period to make this period a little bit longer. What we know is we need to give our students more time to read, more time to write. And that's the other piece of why we are taking on this challenge for the last 8 weeks. We will continue the same safety measures that we are using right now. So our snack breaks will take place outside. One of the changes will be what will happen if there is an indoor snack. The CDC does recommend that students do not eat in a distance shorter than 6 feet away from each other. Since our students were spaced 6 feet away from each other previously, that wasn't an issue. And we actually ate 12 feet away from each other because we had every row eating at a different time. So we've scoured the school and we've found some extra rooms. So for example, in the 3rd grade wing, there's an extra classroom. So one class, half of the students can eat in that extra classroom under the supervision of an instructional aide. And the other 2 classes, half of the class can eat spaced out in the hallway. That we have an instructional aide that will stand there and monitor that as well. Is it ideal? No, but you know what? we've seen it work. We had a class try it out. The kids actually liked it. It felt like a little bit of a picnic. So for now, that's our plan. And we're really hoping that by holding off our reopening by April 28th, the weather will cooperate and we'll have as many outdoor recess days and snack days as we can. The real reason, though, we did wait, I know that some people have asked, why wait till only 8 weeks left, was we have seen a spike in cases after every one of our breaks. And if we're going to bring students back, we didn't want to quarantine students because we had one of those spikes after the spring break. So we chose to wait a good period of time. This has also allowed our staff to become vaccinated. The majority of the staff will be fully vaccinated, meaning that they're 2 weeks since vaccination. Their second vaccination will have occurred prior to April 28th. That helps us to feel a little bit safer for our adults in our community, and which is truthfully going to make us better instructors. We have reduced the classroom furniture in classrooms, and we'll continue with students walking one way up and down the hallways and up and down stairways. So entry and exit. So students are going to enter the building at 8:20. The doors will be open and they will walk right in. Now, do you want to help with that? Do you want to make this better than it was pre-pandemic when you know what Church Street looked like? Here it is. Homework. Help your children become independent to get out of the car. If they independently can get out of the car and you don't have to get around, walk around the car, put on their backpack, give them the kiss, wave while they walk to the door, we will increase our efficiency at drop-off. I can't make that happen. You can. You can help your community. You can help 750 students. You can help Mr. Hagopian, who takes this on as a personal dream that we will have an independent drop-off, by just doing a little practice. When you go somewhere, when you're in the car in the morning, when you're in the car in the driveway, practice getting out of the car. And the same thing happens with pickup. Okay, we are going to stagger our pickup, which we hope will help a little bit. So students in grades 3 through 6 will dismiss at 12:40. They'll leave their door. If they're picking up a younger student, they'll go to that younger student's door outside and pick up that younger child at that door or meet you. But envision this. What if your older child had the responsibility of picking up their younger sibling and walking them to a designated meeting point? Maybe it's the library. Maybe you think that's too far. Maybe it's right across the street, right where the crossing guard is across the street. That will minimize the amount of people on OPS property. Our students are going to be here. And it will also give your older child a sense of responsibility. If we want to develop leaders, we need to give them leadership opportunities. And this is a small one, but a pretty impressive one. And I will tell you the next step once you do that, you start to teach them how to ask their little sister, their little brother about their day. And I have seen some of our middle schoolers and our high schoolers do an amazing job at this. And their younger sibling, well, they look up to their big brothers and sisters. So it becomes a special bonding time as well. Additionally, I want to remind you that the curb, the street, technically not OPS property, but keep your mask on. There are going to be a lot of people here. And if we are going to tell children to keep their mask on all day long, you need to be role models for them. Okay, and I know we all have fatigue, but the fact is, if you want this school fully opened, you are part of the solution, but you can also be part of the problem. So help us work together, teach our students safe protocols, and please keep your mask on. So why dismiss at 12:45? We know that some schools are moving till 1 o'clock or 1:30, and that was something that was on our radar as well. So it does keep to a routine that we at least had some familiarity with. So with keeping to the same model for grades 3 through 6 in terms of times, it meant we didn't have to reinvent the grade 3 through 6 schedule. It was really helpful operationally for our students, for their teachers, for some related services that we offer as well. It also will allow for recess time in grades K through 2 to be increased, which I think our younger students will appreciate. All staff, if we dismiss at 1:30, what that means is teachers every day get a prep period and they get a lunch period that equals about an hour and a half. So if we dismiss at 1:30, their day is done. However, if we dismiss at 12:45, they actually have 45 minutes in the afternoon to work with small groups. And that kind of refers back to our when we had what I need time. That time in the afternoon could be a what I need time. Your child's not, in most cases, going to see their teacher 4 days a week. However, every child will be guaranteed one small group time in the afternoon. There are also some specials that will happen in the afternoon, and I'll talk a little bit more about specials in a moment. So the biggest change we had to make was special areas. If we're going to dismiss at 12:45 and keep with our virtual special model, everyone in the entire school would need specials between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And our special areas would get to sleep in really, really late. So I'm sure they might not have minded it too much, but the truth is it wouldn't be in the best interest of our children because we would have had to have Zoom classes of 100 kids. So we also said what we can do is begin to try some different things with specials. Schools all around have done special areas differently during this reopening time. There are some specials that the special area is on site and they Zoom into one classroom. So we will experiment with that in some of our special areas. In some special areas, we will have a classroom teacher go right into the classroom, and we are making those decisions developmentally. So for example, in first grade, Mrs. Garcia will come into the classroom and give world language, but in sixth grade, she may continue in a Zoom modality. If a special for our virtual students says on site, that just means it's happening in between 8:30 and 12:45. So just substitute on site to direct instruction time. Some people have asked, well, why can't all PE be on site? We're going to work to possibly increase that, but physical education has the biggest amount of protocols around it, cleaning up materials, what can you do, what can't you do? So we knew that we needed our second graders to have on-site PE because of a scheduling issue. Our second graders and our third graders have the same specials every day. And because they have the same specials every day, there's just no way to get everything fit in a way. So we chose to have our second graders have on-site specials and our third graders have a mix. Now, the other piece of that, so they will have on-site physical education. And I'll be honest, I picked a younger grade to also have on-site physical education. And the PE teachers came to me and said, listen, we have taught our sixth graders for a long time, and we really miss them. And we'd like to give them something special at the end of the year. So instead of, I don't remember if it was kindergarten or first grade having on-site physical education, could you make it sixth grade? Could we give them something special? And I think you'll agree that maybe our sixth graders deserve something special at the end of the year. So we added PE as an on-site special for physical education. Now, we were very deliberate in our scheduling of on-site specials. We didn't take away the same subject every day. So for example, when a student has world language, it may be coming out of science and social studies time, but when they have library, it's coming out of language arts time. We wanted to make sure there was a sense of equality across our subject areas. Now, this may change. Kindergarten parents, I'd really like to get your students some on-site specials. So when they come to first grade, they have recognition really of their special area teacher. But we're going to start here and then we'll see what we can add. The worst thing I felt we could do was promise you the world and not be able to come through. So let's start and then we'll see what we can add over time. So these are some of the steps we are in the process of. So we are hiring some on-site additional aides and some remote additional aides. I have some people lined up. I cannot guarantee that they will start exactly on 4/28. They may not start until 5/3. Some of the people that I've lined up are recent college graduates. They're in teacher certification programs. They've done student teaching. So I'm really comfortable with their abilities as an instructional aide, but I can't ask them to skip their college graduation, even though they're pretty eager to get some more time with our students. We are going to continue to fine tune our protocols for physical education, where physical education will happen so that it doesn't interfere with our recesses. You'll remember that our students have designated areas for recess. Every class has a designated area and a designated time to be there. So we know that we don't have cross contact during recess. So we need to identify the times and the places where physical education will be used. We need to work on those students who are getting some extra attention in language arts or in math from one of our basic skills teachers or our targeted intervention teachers. So you will get that schedule, but we wanted to get this presentation done, get some of the big global pieces done, and then we will work on those smaller, more specific individual pieces. We've also purchased some additional technology to help with special areas. We've found that there are some conference cameras that can see the whole classroom that have been really great when a teacher has had to work from home because of quarantining reasons. It's as if the teacher's in the classroom. So we wanted to increase the number of those we had in the building, and they are on their way. We have purchased 2 tents, one small tent for a small group if needed, and 1 tent for instrumental lessons. We've also set up the music room if an instrumental lesson couldn't take place outside. It's been set up with full plexiglass so that every student is in their own plexiglass cubby, if you will. We've also, Mr. Butcher has communicated with parents of instrumental students about required PPE that they would need to supply, specifically bell covers and or masks. I think what I really need this community to know is that phase 2 is not a sign that everything is better. These are our numbers, and they're probably a lot higher than you realize. These are our numbers because we only notify our community if there's been close contact. So if a student had been quarantining and then was diagnosed with COVID, there was no contact in the building. If a student was in our full remote program, if a teacher was in our full remote program, if a student tested positive over break, if they hadn't been in the building for 48 hours prior, which is the contagion period, there wasn't contact. What do you notice? The numbers have gone up over time. Now, I watch Memorial Field all day long. There are a lot of people on that playground. I know Little League is starting and lacrosse is starting. We need to make sure that our protocols and what you're expecting from your child outside of school help to keep us in school. And we promise you that we will make sure that we are doing everything within our power in terms of cleaning, distancing to keep students safe. I have noticed that some questions have come in, and I will ask Mr. Hagopian and Mrs. Hawley if they need me to answer some. I know they've been answering some. Mr. Hagopian is jumping up. He loves this point. Please hold. However, I lost it again, Mr. Rami. Let's see. There we go. Since I have a captive audience, I wanted to tell you about my final OPS principal dream. As many of you know, I will be transitioning to the superintendency soon, and that's caused me to look back on my principalship and the things that I'm really proud of that we've accomplished at OPS. And I often say that I'm supposed to be really proud of raising language arts scores. Since I started as principal of OPS, our number of students passing the NJSLA has increased significantly, and we have more than doubled the number of students exceeding standards in language arts. That's not it. I'm incredibly proud, actually, that when I walk down the hallway, students say hello to each other. I'm incredibly proud that if students see someone coming down the hallway, they hold the door open for them. I'm incredibly proud that students, if I walk down the hallway after a break, don't just say, "Hi, Ms. Bozius." They say, "Hi, Ms. Bozius, how was your break?" Those are the skills that I'm incredibly proud of helping to develop at Oradell Public School. The other thing that I am proud of is bringing some activities to this school that have allowed our students to know that they can make a difference. You know, special shout out to Jen Koth, because when she heard about my turkey trot dream, she helped make it a reality. It's one simple event we do every year, but it helps our children realize they can do something to make a difference. When we do Frosty's Friends and we encourage our students to earn some money, to donate, to buy items for a family in need, we teach them that they can make a difference. When we do Rise Against Hunger, we teach them that there are people out there that have much less than them and they can make a difference. So before I transition down to the superintendent's office, down in the dungeon, I have one more project that I didn't get to accomplish as principal. And I refuse to go downstairs until I do it. So what I'm going to ask the week of May 17th is that your children bring in cereal boxes. We are going to line those cereal boxes down the hallways of Wardell Public School like dominoes. And we are going to see if we can make the largest cereal box domino maze that we will, of course, do a live recording because that's what we do at OPS. Mr. Rami's very excited. His head just popped up when I said live video to see if we can get the cereal boxes to go down the stairs from 6th grade, all the way down the 1st grade hallway, down the 2nd grade hallway, and down to kindergarten. Now, I will be honest, I did start this dream by trying to break the Guinness Book of World Records, but Mrs. Hawley told me to settle. Not everything has to be the biggest out there. So we will just try to make the biggest one in New Jersey instead. So now that I've used my captive audience to share with you my final principal service dream of cereal box domino, which will be the week of May 17th, 17, 18, 19, 20. May 21st will be our live stream of the Domino's cereal box drop. And now, Mr. Hagopian, your favorite part, ask the principal.
What is the status of enrichment in regard to Mrs. Shaw? What is being done for students who may need more challenges?
Well, Ms. Shum will not be able to continue her enrichment in K2 right now, just because we can't make it fit. We will continue to look for some asynchronous activities that we can list on our website. So for example, you'll remember last year we had the additional learning website. We will reactivate that and see if we can add some things there that provides challenges for our students who A, just want to do some more, and or B, finish things quickly.
Are the cereal boxes full or empty?
That is an excellent question. Thank you, whoever submitted that question, for getting to the heart of it here. The cereal boxes are full because what happens with the cereal boxes is that they will be donated to the Center for Food Action after we do our super good maze.
So we had a request to make sure that we repeat the question.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm just thinking about this.
Okay, so I am sorry, I should have remembered that from last time. So the first question had to do with status of enrichment for K2. We cannot make Ms. Sham's schedule work as we increase our day, but what we can do is reactivate our additional learning website and make sure that we have some activities there, specifically some hands-on activities where students can be engaged and challenged outside of school. And the second question had to do with cereal boxes, and the cereal boxes are full because what happens is after we do our domino maze, the cereal boxes will be donated to the Center for Food Action. I've yet to figure out how I'm going to get them there, but Mr. Hagopian in the Panther suit in the middle of the OPS truck is my original dream. Mm-hmm.
We're going to go on the order. So what role will an aide have in a virtual classroom?
Great question. What role will an instructional aide have in a virtual classroom? So I would still want the teacher to do the majority of the direct instruction. So the model that we use in our instruction is that you should be getting a small burst of direct instruction that teaches the teaching point of the day. So for example, if I'm dealing with reading workshop, the teaching point of the day may be that readers pay attention to a character's action to learn about the character. So the teacher would do that lesson and model. But when the students started to work independently, we would split the students up into 2 breakout rooms, the teacher in one, the instructional aide in the other, so that we know there's more personalized attention happening.
you mentioned tents will be used. What has changed this school year that we can now have tents on the premises?
We've always been able to have tents. What has changed this school year that we can have tents on the premises? There are a certain type of tents that we can always have on the premises. However, we're not going to try to have lunch underneath a tent. Every time we talked about tents in the past, the question was, well, what do we do when it rains? We had a tent in September and October and November for school counseling. Counseling services happened under the tent. It was right outside on Prospect Ave. We're just targeting when we use the tents and for what purpose.
Will related services, i.e. speech, OT, et cetera, be in person now with longer on-site days?
Each of those related services will PT, gotta get better at this part, will PT, OT, and speech services be on-site instead of virtual. So OT and PT, the majority of those services have been happening on-site for most children. It's my understanding, I know what I have seen here with speech, we are talking about that. We have gotten the PPE, the speech therapist, Ms. Kalakin and Mrs. Rabinowitz are right now working on schedules to figure out what would be best. We don't want to take a student out of core instruction if we don't have to.
Will virtual students have what I need time as well?
Will virtual students have what I need time as well? Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I'm happy with our reopening was that we didn't do what some schools did with virtual. In some districts, virtual students received the small piece of instruction and then were told to disengage from their Zoom and do their independent work and then log on again in an hour. Okay, we didn't do that. We said we wanted to provide as much of the same as we can. So those students will also have win time in the afternoon.
How will on-site PE work for virtual students such as grade 2?
Okay, how will on-site PE work for virtual students? So your PE, if you're in the virtual class, will not be on-site. It just, when it happens, and I'm trying to remember the time, I want to say it's like 9:30, your students will be learning with either Ms. Trezano or Mrs. Moore. They will say, it's time for PE, and Mr. Kelly, Miss Mayella will just join the Zoom and teach PE there. So nothing will be different. It just, we use the term on-site to mean during the 8:30 to 12:45 time.
What data did you collect about 6-year-olds sitting on Zoom for 4 hours before making these changes?
What data did we collect about 6-year-olds sitting on Zoom for 4 hours before making those changes? As I said, our program is about 750 students. And 750 students, this is the best approach. Now, the truth is, we had full virtual days, we've combined cohort days, we've had experiences. We know that the answer for 6-year-olds sitting on a Zoom is the break between synchronous and asynchronous work, because we don't really want that 6-year-old staring at a Zoom. That wouldn't be great instruction, but teaching the lesson, working over here and logging and checking back in like you do with a recess break in those in grade 1 or grade K. It's not staring at a Zoom the whole time. It should be the balance between asynchronous and synchronous work during that time, just like it is in the classroom. I would tell you that a 6-year-old staring at a teacher for 6 hours, sitting at a desk, would also be horrible instruction. And I wouldn't want that in the classroom, so I wouldn't want this in my Zooms either. It's the balance between independent work. What brain research tells us is you need 10 to 15-minute bursts of direct instruction, then student independent work. Student independent work shouldn't be a child sitting on a Zoom.
What is our experience with Zoom classes with 24 to 31 kids? Does it work over Zoom?
Actually, what is our experience with Zoom classes of 21 to 31 kids? Does it work over Zoom? It really comes down to the developmental level of the student sometimes. So last year, we had 6th grade classes of 27 students, 28 students. I know we had one class of, they learned over Zoom. We have middle school classes. that have over 30 students. They're learning over Zoom. So it is a developmental difference, and it's why we look at treating grades differently. It's why our reopening was, our schedule was different for K2 originally and 3-6.
Have we considered leaving the remote classes as is? As the quality is more important than, sorry, those are typos. Have we considered remote classes as is to keep the class sizes smaller?
Have we considered keeping the remote classes as is, so keeping them in a hybrid model or an AB cohort system? Yes. And truthfully, because we've spoken so much about having equal programs, we didn't want to do that. If your child is in a class where you would like me to survey that grade, I would absolutely do that. Because I don't think that there's pluses and minuses to both. Okay, and I know our teachers would be open to both. However, we've made the premise of this equality, so I didn't want to just do that. But if you're in a class where you're like, listen, I think at this grade level, this would be a better option, I would be happy to survey the class and see if we think that would be a better option for all. Mr. Hagopian is suddenly reading War and Peace.
Well, there's a lot of.
Oh, they're coming in fast. and furious
We
right
just
now.
got a
Okay.
bunch of questions. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to, I want to try to summarize this. Like
And if they responded as anonymous attendee, I can't answer them privately.
Okay.
Ms. Posias, have you started to think about the possibility of summer explorations program that like has been in past years?
Have I thought about summer explorations? We will not be conducting summer explorations this year. The number one issue with explorations is cohort mixing. One student went to 4 classes. One case of COVID would take out 4 teachers and 80 kids. And then are we reimbursing? Are we keeping things running? We've decided that for one more year, we'll pause explorations. We'll allow ourselves to really focus on a solid September reopening. That doesn't mean that there won't be some activities over the summer. We've already started to think about, but there will be no formal explorations program.
We are doing it the lunch.
Mrs. Hawley just mentioned lunch. There is a possibility that we will experiment with lunch in a small group, in a small means this year. I can't try lunch with kindergarten through 6th grade at one time, but I would like to experiment with lunch protocols. So if I was to do that, I would first, we're going to get through a good 3 to 4 weeks and make sure everything's running okay. And then we may look at a grade level and say, let's try lunch in 2nd grade, in 3rd grade, in 4th grade, whatever it is, for a week, just so we understand how to be better prepared to have lunch in September. Because the truth is that it would be I can only think of one way to have lunch in the lunchroom in September, which means lunch may be in the classrooms, which is a whole new protocol for us.
Will there be extended school year for special ed?
If you are a student, if you have a child who has received, will there be extended school year for special ed? So there is an extended school year program this year. Whether or not your child has qualified for it, you should ask your child's case manager.
Once the afternoon classes are dismissed at 12:45, what will the afternoon at home look like? What time will it be?
So once the afternoon classes have been dismissed at 12:45, what will the afternoon look like? That will actually be very different for each grade. So our 2nd graders don't have a lot. I think they only have one. They have one recorded special. They'll have a science lab, and they will have a recorded PE in the afternoons. They'll have their win time, but I can't tell you, it will definitely be done before 3 o'clock, but I can't give you an exact because I don't know when one thing, if it's world language and it's not recorded, I don't know what time that is, and what time that is will depend what time the teacher can work during the win period. So it will look a little different for every grade level.
So the next question was something that was covered during the presentation.
Sure.
So maybe we'll just go a little slower just to clarify. Why was the option that school might go 5 days a week not given when the will you stay virtual survey was sent out?
Okay.
I I know many parents would have switched to the hybrid program, view that 5 days a week was an option, it just helps with working parents and logistics and schedule, but now we've lost that opportunity.
So why didn't we, before we knew we were going 5 days a week, tell virtual families that they could come back? Because had you come back, we wouldn't have been able to go 5 days a week. As I said before, we have numbers of class sizes of 21 in second grade, third grade, and sixth grade. I can't put another body in the room. So had you come back, that model would have come off the table. And we would have either had to do, I don't know if you were here for the beginning of the presentation, we would have had to either do a day till 3 o'clock or till 1:30. Instead of ending at 12:40, we would have to end at 1:30, and that would be our extension of direct instruction. Or we would have had to disband the entire virtual program, bring those teachers back on site to allow everyone who wanted to come back on site.
Well, will incoming kindergarten have an orientation?
Will incoming kindergarten have an orientation? You just made Mr. Hagopian smile, because that is something that is near and dear to his heart. We will share more information about what orientation will be. We will definitely have an orientation. We would like to add an on-site component to it. We just need to work through the logistics of how we would do an attestation. What would that look like? So we will get back to you, but truthfully, it's like talking about teachers for next year. It's like talking about the schedule for next year. We need to get past April 28th and know that everything that we needed with regard to additional aids or additional PPE or additional desks in classrooms is taken care of before we can think any farther.
Since there's no summer explorations, would it be safe to say that there's no kinder camp for the
Yes, since there is no explorations, is it safe to say there is no kinder camp? And I am incredible. It's much easier for me to say no to explorations than it was to say no to kinder camp, but for the same reason, we've decided to, for this year, not have a kinder camp. Now, that doesn't mean we might not have a virtual activity here or there for our incoming kindergartners, but since explorations isn't going to be running, which impacts the director of explorations and many other things, we will not have a kinder camp this summer.
We're getting a number of questions of what's the end of the school day if there's afternoon classes, when will we get afternoon classes? And you might want to mention the plan for Friday.
Okay, so a lot of questions are coming in on when is the end of the school day. So right now, the end of the school day is 3 o'clock. Your child may be done before 3 o'clock, but not all children will be done before 3 o'clock. So for example, I can think of one class that has a special from 2:30 to 3. I wish they didn't. I wish I could move it up, but if I move it up, I have 75 kids in a Zoom for that special. So right now, what I can do is I can make sure that we have our schedules finalized by Tuesday. And then what we'll do is we will make sure your child's classroom teacher shares your child's schedule. It will not right now have their individual win time on it, but there will be no win time on Fridays. We are, as the end of the year comes, we need our teachers to do certain planning things. So we are going to add an extra planning period where they can meet with administration to discuss some things that are going on now and for next year. So if you can give us till Wednesday, we can work on getting those individual schedules. So what does the 2 Kenyon schedule look like? When do they have a Zoom in the afternoon? When might a win period be, even though it might not be the exact day your child works yet?
What type of enrichment examinations will be used? Fourth graders, what would be the plan for that?
Oh, so what type of, that's a great question. What type of enrichment examinations will be used for 4th graders? The truth is, we are still hoping to give the COGAT this spring. We have the COGAT, we have the digital version, we know we can administer it. We wanted to provide an outdoor option. We really aren't comfortable administering the COGAT virtually. It's not that we don't trust all of you, but when that analogy comes, you're going to want to help. So we do have the COGAT. It is really our hope to administer to 3rd graders this spring, so we know about who's in tag entering 4th grade.
So this is another one of those maybe just clarifying questions for the family.
Mhm.
For those continuing with remote learning, will they now just be doing the video stream of live instruction? Being led in class, will someone be moderating the Zoom? I'm sure the questions for the teacher.
So this question was, I think there's been a little bit of confusion that our virtual families are now streaming in. We did not choose that option. You will stay with your virtual teacher in the exact same model of instruction that has occurred for the first 7 months of the school year. The only difference is you will get that 5 days a week from 8:30 to 12:40 or 12:45.
In regard to security, so there was just a question with what we were explaining with drop off.
Mhm.
There was a concern that as far as drop off goes, a parent would be hesitant to let to leave and drive away before their first grader enters the building. So one type of supervision would be watching.
Okay.
children.
So what type of supervision is outside when we drop off so that we feel more comfortable with our first grader leaving the building? What I can do is I can ask the adults who are monitoring each door. Sometimes they hang out in the doors, which if it's cold, I kind of get, and I've never really said, please stand outside. I will ask them to stand 6 feet away from the door so you can see them and you know that they're there. I mean, they might hate me, but I might have an orange vest. So you can see that it's that person and they're there. So let me think about that because I understand that concern. You want to know your child safely got into school.
There's questions that that remote classes
Mhm.
seem to be larger than the on-site classrooms. How is the larger class size going to be managed in terms of instructional?
So it seems that our remote classes are larger than our on-site classes. In some cases they are, and in some cases they aren't. How will that be monitored? That's why we are looking to bring additional instructional aides into those classes. The other option was hiring an additional teacher, but I couldn't imagine a lot of parents saying, yes, for the last 8 weeks, please put my child with the new teacher who's brand new to Oradell Public School. So I thought the consistency of the current teacher was more important in providing an support for the teacher who's going to be able to say, Michelle's been struggling with multiplication. I noticed it on her homework. Go help her today, was a better model of instruction.
Will students in kindergarten be penalized if they don't join the afternoon sessions?
Will students in kindergarten be penalized if they don't join the afternoon sessions? If your schedule is such that you're like, I can't, or you know what, my child can't, because this is a big adjustment for them. They're used to school for 2.5 hours and now you're asking them to be here for 4 hours and 15 minutes. Let your child's classroom teacher know. If they think it's a problem because they feel your child might be missing something really important, they'll reach out to Mr. Hagopian and we'll address that on a case-by-case basis. My gut instinct right now is it's fine, but I don't want to say that and then you pull up the recording and a week ago, but you said it was fine. So let's deal with it on a case-by-case basis and reach out to your child's teacher. How many more are there?
Some of them I'm trying to answer.
Okay.
Some are very personalized, so it's really
Okay.
tricky, but I'm trying to, as I'm scrolling, the next one's come in so that puts it up.
Okay.
But it
Just
says-
so you know, part of the reason that I sent the webinar out ahead of time and asked you for your questions is I could have sped up this process if you had kind of told me this answer wasn't in the webinar. This format worked really well in the fall, and it is something that we'll use moving forward. But when I sent it out, I did only receive 8 questions after it. So it seems like there were a lot more.
So this question kind of goes back to something we covered earlier.
Okay.
Why make changes with only 8 weeks left, with class sizes going up?
Oh, I just dismissed the
Is that you?
question.
All right,
Sorry.
hang on, I'll find it.
I'm sorry. I forget about it.
Why make these changes with only 8 weeks left? Class sizes are going to end up going up, and our children may learn less the last few weeks of school.
Why make these changes with 8 weeks? Because if you want to be open full-time in September, we need to do this now. If you're comfortable with staying with a hybrid model in September or not being fully prepared or not being able to have lunch on site, then we could keep things the status quo. And trust me, it would have been a lot easier. But we truly believe we need to make some changes to learn how things work. And we truly believe that while your children your children have been in classes of 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 kids. Right now, none of our on-site, and yes, I do hear from our remote families, that number is higher, but none of our on-site classes are larger than 21. So that's almost as if saying that you didn't believe a teacher could teach effectively to 21 before. Yes, 8 is always better, but 8 doesn't allow for the development of certain learning behaviors. And if you wanted me to get all educationally geeky, I will tell you that there's this man named John Hattie, and he actually did some research about what's the most effective way to increase learning in a classroom. Class size isn't even in the top 15.
Not even in the top 125.
It's actually not in the top 125. It's great research. And if somebody reminds me, I'll send it to you someday.
Will additional optional materials be available for parents to help overcome summer learning loss and to prep for the full opening?
Will additional learning materials be prepared for summer learning loss and to help with the opening in the fall? That's a very global question. So we normally give some activities. So normally, for example, we give IXL to our upper grade students. We have some reading activities for our students. So we will send out some global things that we expect. Will Dreambox continue over the summer?
Yeah.
So Dreambox, which is a program we've been using in kindergarten and first grade, those students going into first and second grade will have access to that. Our IXL students who've been using it in second through fifth, they'll have that over the summer as well. If there's something else, if you have a concern, my child's really struggling with fractions, again, that's a reach out to your classroom's your child's teacher and say, hey, can you help me, guide me in the right direction?
What best practices from the pandemic would you like to see continued post-pandemic?
What best practices from the pandemic would I like to see post-pandemic? That's a great question. There's definitely some stuff with regard to technology that I think in terms of feedback. So when we had to use Google Classroom to provide feedback, it's actually become a really great way to provide feedback for writers because it's instantaneous and it's quick. So that's one of them. I definitely think anyone who knows me knows that while I truly believe in technology integration, I've always been really worried about it in kindergarten and first grade, because I think you should touch a book and touch materials. So I think that that's a balance, but it's a really great question. I will reflect on it more.
You got a comment? Just wanted to say that you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I understand which survey it says. Why wasn't there a second survey sent out so you could gather additional information?
Sure. Why wasn't, and that some people have asked, why didn't we poll parents to make this decision about whether or not we should have come back or not? And the truth is, we didn't poll you and ask you if we should have K-1-2 on-site and 3-6 hybrid. We are hired as an administrative team to make decisions that we truly believe are in the best interest of your children. And while we value your input is very often about your child. Our job, our responsibility is to make decisions for 750 students. So while we could have sent a survey out, and truthfully, here's what would have happened. Grades 3 through 6 absolutely would have said yes. Everyone in K1 and 2 in the morning would have said yes. The only people that may have said no were some of our remote families and our K2B. And guess what would have happened? They would have been in the minority. So the overall numbers would have been there and would have pushed us to do this anyway. But the truth is, we did this because we truly believe it is what is in the best interest of your children right now. Why don't you answer it privately then?
I said we would address it via email to the whole, I think the whole class.
Mhm.
It's about the third grade remote class.
Mhm.
So I think
Okay.
we'll address
Absolutely.
that prior.
So the question about the third grade remote class, we will email the entire class about it.
That last one, I think we already down.
I think so too. I was afraid to delete it.
Yeah, just in regard to, for a virtual student, special area classes are between 8:30 to 12:45. What do they do after 12:45?
So if for a virtual class, if the special is between 8:45 and 12:45, okay. What do you do after 12:45? It's the same thing if you're in an on-site class. At 12:45, school is over. You'll have possibly that day have wind time. There are recorded lessons that you'll need to do for PE or for science lab. So there will be some learning in the afternoon as well.
You have a parent with a hand up, so I'm asking and going to them privately to ask a question.
You have a question, Mike?
And
Oh, that was the one I was.
You just mentioned to people that if
There
we
were-
miss- they started coming
yeah,
really fast, that if we
yeah.
miss one, that they're taking value.
if there is a question that didn't get answered, Mr. Goodman very adorably just said they can email me, or you can email the appropriate assistant principal for your grade level. And if they don't have that answer, they will come to me and we will work on it together. I want to say a special thank you to 148 people who showed up tonight. And I also want to say a special thank you to the many, many of you who have fully supported this administrative team throughout this reopening. This definitely has not been an easy process for any of us. You know, we weren't, our teachers say it all the time, you say it all the time, you know, we weren't trained for how to do this, how to do school in the middle of a global pandemic. I want to tell you the best story that happened this year, and that's what I'd like to close with. We had a parent call a few months ago, and we had a case of COVID in our parent community. And the parent called and said, I just need to know, do you know that this person has COVID? And we said, we know lots of things about lots of people. It's the answer we give you all the time, right? We can't divulge personal information. And the parent kind of, I think, got what we were saying, like, don't worry, we've got this. And she said, you know what? I trust that if you have information, you're doing what you need to do with that information. And it was the best thing that happened to this administrative team this year. So I don't need every single person in this community to agree with our decisions, but please know that we make every decision we do make in what we believe is in the best interest of all children. Now, I can't tell you that it is the best interest of every single one of those 750. But our job is to think about 750. And we truly believe that what we do on April 28th and the amount of hard work it's going to take to get us there is in the best interest of all children, because it's going to help us be ready to open school in September. I shouldn't have kept talking because Mr. Hagopian's back again.
I'm back, but I have 25 phenomenal comments. All of them just saying, thank you, Ms. Bozius, for always doing what's in the best interest of children at OPS. Wonderful job, you rock. Thank you for all of your dedication to the children of Oroville. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for another amazing presentation. It just goes on and on. So
Thank you. And I do have one other comment for the 139 people that stayed. I will send out the revised calendar for this year, but the board did approve the change of calendar last night. So the Friday before Memorial Day and the Tuesday after Memorial Day will be days off, and we will still continue to end school on Friday, the 25th, but that will give everyone a longer Memorial Day weekend. Thank you and have a great evening.